So as I mark up and do the active reading, you guys can do what I do, or if you have your own active reading, you can do it as well. So we've already looked at the title, and Cohen recognized that amigo is Spanish. And so perhaps this takes place in Spain or somewhere where they speak Spanish. And there's brothers. So I'm going to say that there's two boys who are probably brothers. And it's by Peary Thomas. Now, make sure you guys read the background. Don't ever skip anything, okay? You want to read the introduction, and you want to read captions if there are pictures with captions underneath it. So this says, this story is about two friends, amigos in Spanish, living on the Lower East Side of New York City. Okay, so I know the setting, so it takes place in New York City. And there are two friends, so they're not brothers, but they are friends. Many boys from the Lower East Side have dreamed of building a better life by winning the New York Golden Gloves. Oh, the Golden Gloves, that sounds like boxing to me. Yep, I'm right. So I'm going to track down my answer. Yep, I'm right. So a boxing tournament started in 1927 by Paul Gallico, a newspaper writer. I'm going to make a connection here. That's interesting to me. I didn't realize that the Golden Gloves was started by a newspaper writer. I would have thought it would have been started by an athlete. So that's just a little fact that I'm going to remember. This tournament marks an amateur's entry into the world of big-time boxing. So right now, I already know a lot about this story. It's about two boys who obviously are going to be into the Golden Gloves tournament. I know it takes place in New York City, the Lower East Side. I don't know anything about New York City, but I'm going to guess that this is probably a poor part of the city. I don't know. Perhaps it is. We'll find out. Before I get started, I need to look on the side here, literary focus. Underline the names of the two main characters. Circle 3 details that tell how similar or alike they are. Why do you think the author wants us to know this? So before I read, I already know what the author is going to be asking me. I want to underline the main characters, which I always do. Remember we talked about that in 7th grade? So, here we go. Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas. So, there's the main characters. Antonio and Felix. Brandon? Are you just stretching? Okay. We're both 17 years old. So, they were 17. I remember when I was 17. You guys don't have that connection because you're not 17 yet. But I remember when I was 17, I played a lot of sports at that age. They were so together in friendship that they felt themselves to be brothers. Okay, so they're very close. That's why it's called brothers. So really good friends. So over here I'm going to write down Antonio Cruz, Felix Vargas, and then it wants us to say how they are similar or alike. And I know that when I have to compare two things, what graphic organizer or picture do I use? What have you guys used in other classes when you compare two things? Cohen?
I forget. I thought you were going to say tags.
Okay. So when I compare two things, I use the Venn diagram. Okay? And in the middle is what you want to put that makes them the same. Out here, what makes them different. So this is Antonio, and this is Felix. And I should have made the middle one bigger. They had known each other since childhood, growing up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the same tenement building. Oh, I have a question here. What's tenement? What? And I see that there's a little footnote. Remember I told you about footnotes? Down here, a tenement, used as an adjective. Basically, a tenement is an apartment. So, in New York City, they call their apartments tenements. and they're often cheaply built and poorly maintained. So they're not as nice as apartments. So that's why they call them tenements. Building on 5th Street between Avenue A and Avenue B. Antonio was fair, lean, and lanky. So here's that direct characterization. Remember we watched that Frozen video? So Antonio is fair, so he has fair skin like I do, which I'm going to remember Antonio is light complected. Lean, which means he's thin, and lanky. Why Felix is dark. So they're exact opposites. So they're like, I'm going to make a connection here. They're like me and my sister, and actually my brother. I'm the only one that has blonde hair and blue eyes. My brother and sister both had, they tan really nice, and they had dark eyes and dark hair. You may have the same situation. You may not have the same connection. And Felix is dark, short, and husky. So those are the differences. Antonio's hair was always falling over his eyes, while Felix wore his black hair in a natural afro style. Okay, so Felix must have African American blood in him. And Antonio's hair is like straight. Okay, so obviously there's a reason that the author wants us to visualize these characters and what they look like, or he would not have told us what they look like. We don't know what the reason is right now, but maybe there's a reason as we go through the story. Maybe not. Each youngster had a dream of someday becoming lightweight champion of the world. So that's similar. So they want to be champions. I should have made that bigger. Champs. And they box. Every chance they had, the boys worked out. Sometimes at the boys' club on 10th Street and Avenue A, and sometimes at the pros gym on 14th Street. Early morning sunrises would find them running along the East River Drive, wrapped in sweatshirts, short towels around their necks, and handkerchiefs, Apache style, around their forehead. So I have a question here. What does it mean, Apache style? When you hear Apache, what do you think of? Do you know what Apache is? Apache is a Native American tribe. They were warriors, and they usually wore a red bandana, it was real thick, around their foreheads. If you didn't know that, you can't visualize what they look like, but now that I told you, now you can see the boys having probably this thick band around their head. While some youngsters were into street negatives, Antonio and Felix slept, ate, rapped, and dreamt positive. Okay, so they stayed out of trouble. So that's a character trait. Okay, they have goals in life, and they know what it takes to get their goals. Between them, they had a collection of fight magazines, second to none. Plus, a scrapbook filled with torn tickets to every boxing match they had ever attended, and some clippings of their own. If asked a question about any given fighter, they would immediately zip out from their memory banks. Divisions, weights, records of fights, knockouts. I'm sorry, I chuckle because I just thought of my little boy. He loves baseball and football, and he hates to read, but you ask him anything about any character, any baseball player or basketball player or football player, and he will tell you things. It's unreal. How many of you boys are like that? Right? You don't like to read, but you know the stats of everything. Good. So over here, selection vocabulary. In boxing, a competition between two boxers is called a bout, just as a competition between two baseball teams is called a game. Why do you think different terms are used to label competitions in different sports? So why do you think? Somebody want to give me an answer to right there? Why I coach cross country. It's not called a game, is it, Cohen? What's it called? It's called a meet, right? Basketball, it's called a game. Softball, it's called a game. Wrestling, they're called matches. Why do you think they have different terms? And then go ahead and write your answer. Think about it, and then you write your own answer there.